how much of a child Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry is. I mean, we already know that Donald Trump is a child, right? I mean, he acts like a toddler. He acts like a toddler. I don't know. So Louisiana Office of the Governor, Executive Order number JML 25-123. It's like is that one of the like phone numbers that they used to give in movies where instead of being like 555, they would put like KL5 or something like that. I don't know. I guess we number our executive orders differently here in the Gret Stead of Louisiana, as they say. State of emergency. Schumer shutdown creates food insecurity. Of course, executive orders doing official state business should not be political. I mean, this should just be like, because of the shutdown, because of the government shutdown and the SNAP benefits that are being lost in November, that there's food insecurity in the state of Louisiana. And that might be somewhat of a correct statement, but in reality, the real statement and the real onus and the responsibility of the shutdown, of the not the food shutdown, but the food insecurity is Donald Trump. Now, the shutdown's responsibility, as we discussed with Chad last show, it's the Republicans, because the Republicans are refusing to come to the table and debate this stuff. But the cause of the food insecurity has nothing to do with that, because, as most of y'all know, there was legislation that already passed that already appropriated funds to go towards SNAP in the case of they needed like a contingency fund or something in case, the government shut down, so that people wouldn't be food insecure. But the Trump administration is deciding that they're going to ignore the law because we have a lawless administration. They do not give a rat's ass about law, about Supreme Court rulings, unless they benefit him. They don't give a crap about any of that. And they'll just allow people to starve because he doesn't want to spend that money, but he'd rather, spend $20 billion or $40 billion, I guess, to go help Argentina, but can't spend the $6 billion that was already put aside as a contingency just in case people, might shut down the government. He's not going to spend that, and people will be harmed because they have a lack of food. And that's just deplorable. So Hillary Clinton was absolutely right. The Trump administration and more than half of his supporters at this point are a basket of deplorables. But again, it's the Republicans who are shutting this down because the Democrats are like, hey, we're going to come to the table. And we wanted to discuss this continuing resolution because we have things that we'd like to see in it. And the Republicans are like, nope, sorry. So we'll get to that a little bit in a second too, because that's another topic, because Thune is also being a dumbass when it comes to this. Whereas the governor is responsible for meeting the dangers to the state and the people presented by emergencies and disasters, whereas Louisiana Homeland Security and Emergency Assistance Disaster Act confers upon the governor of the state of Louisiana powers to address disasters from natural or man-made events, yada, yada, yada. Let's see, whereas the Democratic Party's failure under U.S. Senate Democrat leader Chuck Schumer to reach a federal funding agreement has resulted in the shutdown of the United States government. They could do the nuclear option. The Republicans could absolutely drop the nuclear option and stop the filibuster right now. But they're not doing it because they don't really care about whether or not people are going to be in a food emergency. They don't care about the poor people, the working class people who rely on food stamps to, help, support themselves living. They just care about making political points. And again, it's not the Democrats' failure. The Democrats are at the table. The Republicans are the ones who refuse to come to the table. Whereas on October 10th, the USDA directed states to hold November SNAP benefits as the USDA would be delaying transmission to state EBT vendors due to the Schumer shutdown. No, the funds should be there because they were already voted on as contingency plans, but, Jeff Landry never lets the facts get in the way of him making an erroneous attack on his political opposition. Whereas any interruption of SNAP benefits will significantly increase food insecurity amongst Louisiana's most vulnerable populations, who you couldn't care less about. You couldn't care less about any of Louisiana's vulnerable populations. So, whereas over 120,000 of SNAP residents and recipients in Louisiana are disabled, whereas, let's see, congressional Republicans under the leadership of Speaker Mike Johnson, leadership, that term should be used loosely, voted to fund the federal government, and our U.S. senators representing Louisiana have repeatedly done the same, although those senators have not come to the table, and the Democrats are. Be adults. Be adults in the room and go in and sit at the table and have a conversation and come out with, a plan that would include what the Democrats are asking for, or at least some of it. Whereas this executive order declares and recognizes that an emergency situation exists in the state of Louisiana, yada, yada, yada. Now, therefore, I, Jeff Landry, of course, I skipped like 2/3 of the whereases because it's mostly full of crap. Governor of the state of Louisiana, by virtue of the authority vested in me, the Constitution and the laws of the state of Louisiana, order and direct as follows. Pursuant to Homeland Security assistance, the state of emergency is hereby declared to exist as a result of emergency conditions. The designated emergency area is the state of Louisiana. The emergency declaration shall be transmitted to the Speaker of the Louisiana House of Representatives and the President of the Louisiana Senate. Pursuant to LARS 29:732, during a declared state of emergency, the prices charged or value received for goods or services sold within a designated emergency area may not exceed the prices ordinarily charged for comparable goods and services in the same market area at or immediately before the time of the state of emergency, unless the price by the seller is attributable to fluctuations in applicable commodity markets, fluctuation in applicable regional or national market trends, or to reasonable expenses and charges and attendant businesses risk incurred in procuring or selling the goods or services during the state of emergency. Section 5, all departments, commissions, boards, agencies, and officers of the state or any political subdivision are authorized and directed to cooperate to the state may take in response to this as disaster. So basically, it's a whole big bunch of nothing that this executive order handles. It's basically nothing. Why is it basically nothing? Because if the tariffs come in and increase the price of the goods, then the tariffs are an external reason, and therefore people will be allowed to say, "Oh, I'm raising prices because of tariffs," and then he'll be able to go, "Okay," and then nothing will be done. This is just a big bunch of smoke and mirrors trying to, fool the people into the fact that the Republican government of Louisiana is doing something when in reality they're doing nothing, just like the Republicans in the federal government are doing nothing to help the people they supposedly are claiming to support. But let's go back to old John Thune for a second, because John Thune says that he is almost ready to have a conversation. He will engage pretty soon with Democrats about ending the shutdown. Senate Majority Leader John Thune said Wednesday he expects to engage pretty soon with a group of rank-and-file Senate Democrats about ending the 29-day and counting government shutdown. If a meeting happens, it would be a rare bipartisan gathering involving a top party leader. So far this month, Thune and Schumer have not met to discuss an exit path to the shutdown, leaving it to a small group of deal-making members who have engaged in informal on-and-off talks. These conversations have heated up in recent days. Members of both parties say as major ramifications bear down, including the possible lapse of federal food aid for 42 million Americans, which there shouldn't be because, again, there is contingency funds that are available to make sure that the people eat in November, but nobody, on the Republican Party wants to acknowledge or admit that. Thune claims that the Democrats are looking for an off-ramp. What he said is, what I've told them all along is as soon as they're ready to open up the government, that we will ensure that they have a process whereby they can have the chance to get their legislation voted on, their policies voted on. Why the fuck would they do that? Why the fuck would they sit there and say, "Oh, we'll vote to open the government back up as long as you promise that we'll have a process where we could have a chance to have the policies voted on." Notice he's not saying that their policies will be voted on. It says that there is a chance that the policies will be voted on. And notice he's not saying that they will be passed. He says they will be voted on. And in a Republican-controlled Senate, they're not going to pass. So the Democratic Party has to use, and the Democratic elected officials representing the Democrats in the Senate need to say, "Hey, we want this stuff in the bill or else we're going to continue the filibuster. And if you want to make sure that the people are fed, go use the SNAP benefit contingency funds that we passed and we, allocated. We appropriated those funds for y'all to do just that. Use those funds. Don't come whining to us that you can't do it, because you can. In fact, I would argue that not using those funds is violating the law. This administration is, again, being a lawless administration. There is no reason right now that the Republican Party should not come in and act in actual good faith. I've almost choked on those words. Imagine the Republican Party acting in good faith at all. There's no good faith in the Republican Party, especially among the elected leadership in the House and the Senate. No good faith whatsoever. It's why Speaker Johnson hasn't sat the other Democrat who was just elected but not yet, sworn into office, because they don't act in good faith. They claim to have faith, but they don't act in good faith. And so, we're going to have a chance. We're going to offer the Democrats a chance to have their things. No. If the Democrats believe that, it's like Charlie Brown and the football with Lucy. If the Democrats believe that they have any shot at getting, these funds extended from these the COVID era increases to the ACA funds that would help people pay for their ACA plans if they don't, if they don't have the money available initially, I guess, to cover it, to cover the premiums, the premium assistance or whatever. So, yeah, no. If any Democrat believes Thune, that he somehow is going to give them a chance, their chance is going to be zero, because they'll even if it gets onto the floor, it's never going to be voted on. It'll either be filibustered by Republicans if there's enough votes to actually pass it, or they'll just not pass it. So the Democrats have to use whatever power they have, and right now it's the power of the filibuster, to force the hands of the Republicans to do what is right. Force them to come to the table and use, as an example, again, use the contingent SNAP funds as a reason why to continue this fight. Yeah, it sucks that there are people working who are not getting paid. That should be absolutely illegal. If you're an essential employee that needs to work, then you should be an essential employee that gets paid. And that should be handled in the law. But for some reason, it's not. But that doesn't make us have a good excuse to just give in to the Republicans. But that's all the Democrats tend to do these days. Either they're the only ones compromising, or they just give in. We don't force the Republicans to compromise, and we absolutely should. We should hold their feet to the fire and tell them, if you're not going to compromise with us, and if you're not going to spend the SNAP benefits like you're supposed to, then guess what? You're the ones to blame. You are the ones to blame. Meanwhile, good people in all parts of the country are getting together and putting together like food resources for the people who do have, live in, food deserts or whatever, and who need to have access to food, who can't afford it. There are plenty of good people across this country who are doing what they need to do to make sure that people are fed, despite the fact that the Trump administration is not doing their job. But let's make it clear. Any party who gets sick or who dies because of a lack of food in November is specifically another needless death caused by the Trump administration. And there is no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And if you're a conservative right now watching, if you're a conservative right now and want to debate me, we will open up the phone lines in a second. Or you can just leave a comment down below once I post this video too. But yeah, this is absolutely absurd that the people are being so manipulated into believing, it's the Schumer shutdown. No. It's the GOP shutdown, and it's the Donald Trump starvation plan. That's the only two things that should be said. Repeated over and over again ad nauseum.